This is Harry Watt at North Carolina State University Wood Products Extension, and this is the National Firewood Workshop 2021. I'm here today with Jadie Hatcher of Southern Legacy Wood Products of Cleveland, Georgia, which is North Georgia. Welcome, Jadie.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate all the help you've given me as I've learned. Gosh, 2 years ago, I started this project, and guys like you that are, experts in this and have years and years and years of not just book knowledge, but real world experience have expedited my process and learning curve in this. So I'm more than happy to share what little I've learned over the last couple of years with you.
Well, tell our audience a little bit about Southern Legacy Wood Products. Okay,
so we are right now, the only product we make is firewood. We do kiln-dried firewood, packaged only. So we're moving about, I would say, 350 loads a year. We're going to try to push 400 loads this year. Full tractor trailer loads are 1,950 bundles, so we're looking at about 700,000 bundles this year. We've been in business 2 years. Really started building the plant February of 19. So we're just over 2 years into this, and it's been fast. It's been ups and downs, and a lot of learning on the fly.
Well, there you go. So you're in the bundle business, and you're selling to brokers to the big box stores. Is that right?
Correct. We go through one distributor, and they actually had the relationships with the stores. We feel that was the best arrangement for us. I'm not great as a salesman, and the margins are still there, and the volume is there in working with a broker. And thus far, it's proven to be a great partnership. I would not want to leave it at this point, because even for a little better margin, the work that's involved, the logistics of moving these trucks at that kind of volume, there's experts that can handle that a lot better than I can.
Okay. Well, I've got a question. You run your business, I assume, wide open year round. Is that correct?
That's correct. We right now we're in our build up phase. So we have a 20,000 square foot warehouse on our property, and really starting about mid-April, that's when the season really ends, and we start building up, and we try to get about 125 to 140 loads in our warehouse to kind of ship out in mass quantities early September. We'll start shipping. We'll ship some in August. You'll have some loads go out for Memorial Days, all the holidays throughout the summer season. But it's basically a build up, and then you dump it in the first part of the fall, fill up all the stores, and then replenish through really about, I guess, end of March is when it really slowed down. COVID really helped us out. We didn't see a slowdown until really about 2 weeks ago, and at that time, everything we made was going out the door. And but we anticipated, really before now of having a buildup in product.
Well, I got a question. You buy logs. You're not a logger. Is that correct?
That's correct. We'll work with anyone, but we have 3 to 4 primary contractors that we buy their pulpwood. We call it pulpwood. It's the closest pulpwood mill to us is about 3 hours away. And so these loggers, when they're in the area, we just buy directly from them. I've looked at maybe getting in the log business, or even opening up a log yard and sorting logs as they come in, but we're just not there yet.
Well, sometimes it's better to keep it simple. There's only so much of you to go around. But
that is exactly right.
When I saw you, if I remember right, it was going into the winter, and you had a big supply of logs so you wouldn't run out. Is that kind of what you like to do?
Yeah, you especially going to the wintertime, the weather turns and loggers can't get in, and really that's exactly opposite of when your demand is there. So you need to buy we buy year round and we never turn a load down. We've got, about 22 acres here, and, the more logs, it's inventory. It's capital that needs to be on the ground. When bad weather hits and loggers are out for 3 to 4 weeks, we chew through about a load and a half a day. So actually probably closer to 2 loads now. And so, you're out 4 weeks, that's 40 loads. If you don't have 40, 50 loads on the ground, you can find yourself shut down.
Right. Well, a little bit of your personal history, and I don't want to get into all this depth, but you were successful in other business ventures. So you started out with what I call the grub stake. You got a pile of money together, and you figured out where to go. That you're a family member that had been in the sawmill business, and you acquired the family facilities.
Correct. This business at this scale is very capital intensive, and that's not just on the front end of buying all the equipment. You got to have a warehouse. If you don't have a warehouse, you're going to be doing this seasonal, and it's hard to keep employees in a seasonal business, especially packing, cutting. Trained employees. You can cut year round, but you can't pack year round if you don't have a warehouse. You really have a lot of capital that needs to be expended on logs. It takes a lot of money to get in and get started in this business if you want to do it to scale. There's money to be made doing this part-time. There's plenty of campgrounds, if you want to do this on a smaller scale. There's plenty of campgrounds, and it's a little bit more of a hustle than a business. But there's plenty of opportunities out there, big and small.
Okay. Well, talk a little bit about, I know you you got 2 processors now, is that right?
Yeah, we have 2 2040 XP multi-techs, and we run both of those. These were 2014 and 15 models when we bought them used. And, whether you buy new, whether you buy used, processors are going to tear up. They're just, it's rough. It's rough work. We think that having 2 where there's 1 down, you don't have to stop the line. We try to keep a buildup of wood in a pile, so we don't have the bottleneck of this whole operation should be the kiln. That's where you build everything around. So you want to make sure you're supplying the kiln with wood at all times, and the wood is drying and supplying your packing line. And your packing line should be limited by the supply of wood from your kiln. And really the processing side of this is you just make as much as possible. And if as long as you're filling up the kiln 2 to 3 times a week, whatever your schedule is, on top of that, it's just build up. It's just, kind of a reserve for when something goes wrong and you're down 2 or 3 days, you don't turn the kiln off.
Well, that's a sawmill mentality. We would always we spent the most of the money at the head rig, so it dictated what everybody else did. And the dry kiln is typically the most expensive single item in a firewood business. So you've got that part right. So you use wire baskets for your wood, right?
Yeah, we custom made our baskets. These things, there's again, I'm not made out of money. There's no doubt about that. And I borrowed money along the way, but I look at it as an investment, not spending money. You can buy the water crates and convert those over to firewood baskets, and the corrosion and acidity of firewood, of hardwoods, it's just going to eat that stuff up, and you're going to be just fighting an uphill battle. So we invested, I guess it was probably about $140,000 in baskets alone. These are 5 foot, these are half cord baskets, 5 foot by 5 foot by 5 foot. And I think we've got about 181 now. And they're not cheap. And, with pricings of steel, it's actually going up more than that.
Well, I got a quote. We haven't mentioned your mix of wood species that you're splitting. Can you cover that for us?
Yeah, we in North Georgia, we have a lot of white, red oak, and a lot of poplar. Our supplier, our vendor that we sell through, has no problem with the putting poplar. Actually, it's a good wood for the logistics side of this business, which you're also fighting because of the weight of the poplar. It's a lighter wood. It dries a lot drier. And, we fought for a while we didn't get a lot of poplar in. We had one track this guy brought us, and we didn't mix our wood up well enough. And we had a couple trucks that were weighed out overweight. And the reason was there wasn't enough poplar on the load. So a lesson learned there was we need to mix our species of logs as we process them. So there's a mix in the baskets and a mix in the kiln. And then when we package the wood, there's a mix of the different products to get the weight down.
So is your bundle is a wrapped bundle or a shrink wrapped, or how's your bundles working for you?
So right now we're doing a mesh bag. It's a custom design bag by patented design bag by our vendor, and it's difficult. It's a slow process. It took us a long time to learn how to do it efficiently. But we just bought a new machine to do heat shrink, an APM custom built bundling machine. A pretty good investment, but we feel like that's going to enable us to decrease our labor cost, increase production speed, and it should pay for itself in roughly about 2.5 years.
Well, good for you. It's, you got to have the equipment to run the volume.
Correct.
That's just what it takes. And running year round, I think, is really smart for keeping a crew.
Well, it's this business about, I always say this business is about pennies and seconds. You're looking for 1 penny a bag and 1 second on the production line. And when you're doing that 700, 800,000 times a year, that adds up to a lot of money. That adds up to a whole lot of money. So, we did the studies on this new packaging method, and our vendor agreed to let us do it. And you don't get as much for that heat shrink package as you do something in a mesh bag. But we felt like it was we're still going to do both products. It'll be a mix of both products. That's what our customer wanted. And but what we're probably going to do is run the heat shrink in the winter months, and as the product is going out, and then we'll use the mesh bags in the summer months to store up. It's a slower process. It won't fill our warehouse up as fast, and we feel like it's going to store better as well.
Okay. From the financial management, how often do you look at your financial numbers?
Hold on, I got to do something right now and look at them. Now that you remind, no, I mean every day, twice a day. I mean, there's a lot of expenses going out and a lot of money, coming in, and there's weeks, you better check your bank account, because if you had 4 or 5 bills come in, you could be upside down. Your gas bill alone, supplying the kiln can be $4,000 and $5,000 a month. So it's that's my primary job now. Once I've got the business up and going, is the financials and just watching the expenses and watching the revenue.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed visiting your operation. It's like I say, it's probably been 2 years since I bopped through. It was kind of funny. You called me on a trip. I was going to Atlanta, so I ended up coming up your way, spending the night, and got to tour your place the next day. I really appreciated it. I just wish we got down that way more often.
Well, you were a tremendous help. I feel like I was a complete novice back then, which I was, and I'm by no means an expert at this point, but just some of the discussions we had on drying firewood, and there's just, it's obviously not as complicated. We probably overcomplicated it to some degree. Drying pine, drying oak lumber is more scientific, where you're trying to use wet bulbs and dry bulbs and depressions between the two. Look, what you need on firewood after 2 years of doing this is a ton of air volume moving through the wood to go through the randomly sorted firewood baskets, and you need heat and you need time. I don't think you can do it in 24 hours. Some people can. I think you're running a little bit too hot and having a little bit of chance of some risks there. I think it's about a 30 to a 36 hour process to dry firewood safely and efficiently.
You once taught me you had some theories. You've had 2 kilns at your operation. The second one had a lot more air and a lot more heat.
Yep.
What did you learn there?
I think it's more about volume, air volume moving through the wood. You know, a lot of, and there's some really good kilns out there, smaller kilns, but I wanted a larger kiln to do more volume. There's arguments for both. I can make arguments for and against both, you know, a small package kiln or a big kiln. You know, ours is a 42 cord kiln. There's arguments for both. You know, the redundancy of having 3 smaller kilns versus 1 big kiln. If something breaks, you're down on ours. But I like to get it in, get it out, and be done with it. But our first kiln was, we just didn't have enough airflow. It was, I think we had 6 5-horsepower motors turning some fans in the back. It was all on one side of the kiln and the rear of the kiln. And that just turned out to not work with firewood really well. So what we ended up doing is redesigning, Bold Design actually, together we came up with this design called the X Factor. And it's basically you're pushing air from one side of the kiln left to right. And one wall of fans, we have 4 fans on each set of 4 fans on each side wall. And what we did was we end up wiring the fans opposite of one another. So when one is pushing the air through, on the opposite side of the kiln, one is pulling the air through. All right, and then the kiln controls that run the kiln will reverse that airflow every 180 minutes. So what was pulling the air will now push. So you got more of an even heat where basically the wood dries evenly throughout it. So in essence, you're only pushing through 10 foot of baskets. We have 4 rows of baskets in the kiln. So instead of having to push through 20 foot, we're only actually pushing through 10 foot. And then the other side is pulling that air through.
Well, that's something the yellow pine industry learned. And it's been a 20-year learning curve on firewood. We started, everybody said, well, I got a lumber kiln, I can put firewood in it. And they would spend 2 weeks to dry it. And they said, holy cow, I can split faster than I can dry. What can I do? And over the years, we've increased airflow and we've increased heat. So it seems like maybe we've finally arrived.
Yeah, heat, I think you can run it 190 up to 240. And it really doesn't make that much of a difference. I think it's more about getting to temperature quicker. You know, the wood itself stores energy inside the wood as you're heating it up. So our core is at, a couple hundred degrees, 8 to 10 hours into the process. And at that point in time, our kiln is only running probably 30%, 35% to maintain that temperature in the kiln. The wood itself is heating the kiln. So at that point, it's really about airflow more than it is about anything else.
Okay. Well, what else do you want to tell us about running a firewood business and what you've learned in the last 2 years?
I mean, I started out with absolutely zero knowledge in this business. I ended up with my grandfather's old mill back, and we looked at putting in I wish we had at this point. We looked at putting in a hardwood mill, and that's just, it was too complex, too many moving parts. We looked at getting the pine mill going, and there was no money in pine back then. And I actually tried to buy another business in another state, and that didn't work out. And, saw the opportunity of firewood, and the margins are there, and the volume is there. And I'm not going to say it's not complex, but there's not quite as many moving parts as a sawmill, where you're cutting, 1-inch boards, 2-inch boards, 1.5-inch boards, widths 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There's just, I like to be very focused on what I'm doing. And, the firewood seemed like a pretty simple operation from the outside looking in. Once we got into it, though, it was, a little bit more complex than what we thought. I think I wouldn't say, you're always learning. We're always trying to save 1 second on that line for average time to produce a bag. And we're looking to save 1 penny on our cost. And it's like winning the lottery every time you find a penny. It's just, that's where the money's at. You do 700,000 bags, 800,000 bags a year. You save 1 penny, that's a lot of money.
Okay. Well, I think we'll tie it up here, Jadie. I really appreciate you coming on board to the National Firewood Workshop. This is June 9th and 10th, and appreciate your input here, and hope to visit you again soon.
Well, and I welcome anybody that's in the industry. I know this is somewhat of a fickle industry sometimes, and people don't like to share trade secrets. I look at it as something, if I can help somebody that starting out, I'm more than welcome to take a phone call, an email, or if you're in Cleveland, Georgia, stop by and see us. Believe it or not, I'm probably going to be picking your brain as somebody new that hasn't been kind of ingrained with the way to do things, and I'll probably learn something from you. So any of you guys, experience, new, whatever, if you're ever in Cleveland or want to give me a call, look us up on the web. And we're more than happy to talk to you and learn from one another.
Very good. Thank you, Jadie, and have a good time this summer.
All right. Thanks. I look forward to hearing from you, Harry. Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye.